What's up, Jones Bones? It is your girl Unitedly Random, and today we are starting my new series, Trauma Timeline. Like the name suggests, we are going to go through my trauma timeline, which isn't gonna always be easy. It's not gonna always be smiley, but if you are willing to go along this journey with me, stick with me, okay? Right after this intro, we're gonna go ahead and jump into why I am deciding to do my trauma timeline and speak a little bit on what led me up to this point.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
And we are back. Hello, Jones Bones. Thank you for continuing to watch. You know, you could have clicked out. And also, if you are continuing to watch, I just want to make sure that you do know that this is not going to always be nice. And I will be talking about some heavy topics today, which I'm possibly going to be talking about heavy topics throughout this series. So, first things first, how are you guys? I hope that you guys are doing well, and I'm gonna tell you guys about why I'm doing this. And I'm going around in a circle right now, and I guess I'm getting a little bit nervous because this is going to be the real. This is gonna be me, okay? So, trauma timeline has been something that I wanted to explore on my channel for a while now. And it's something that I kind of tap into every once in a while on my channel. If you guys have been here since I had 200 subscribers, honestly, have you guys been here since I had 10 subscribers? I tend to go through a certain pattern, and that's with my mental health. I'll go up, I'll go down, I'll disappear, and I'll pop back up with a bunch of videos. And that's because I just be going through it sometimes. And sometimes I have to have my little return moment, which nothing's bad with a return moment, but I have mine a lot. And I'm trying to push through that nowadays. And honestly, I'm feeling better mentally nowadays. So we've gotten a little bit more consistency from me, right? But I would start to talk about certain things in my childhood. Whenever the thought would arise, I would just kind of blabbermouth it out. And the problem with that, and what I hated about that, is it kind of felt like trauma dumping. Now, trauma dumping is, I'm just gonna put the definition up right now. And I'm going to give you my own definition off my head. I'm not sure if it's the correct definition, but trauma dumping is when you just kind of just throw your story out there, your traumatic story out there, without care of the people that you're giving this story to. And the problem with that is it could bring back a lot of nasty feelings. People who haven't necessarily worked on healing their trauma, it could bring their trauma back up. And even if someone has worked on healing their trauma, it can still bring their trauma back up to the forefront and make them start thinking. And it when I would do it, it wasn't necessarily like I never really gave a trigger warning. I think I got into saying trigger warning a little bit later, but I never really gave too much of a trigger warning. I just kind of just spit it out, like kind of emotionally vomited what was on my mind. And the reason that I would do that is because I am an emotional person. Without a doubt, I am very emotional. And I think that this comes from my childhood, but like I've just always been, it's just my personality, it's my trait, emotional, right? And because when I was young, I was never really allowed to really speak on my emotions, I would kind of just hold them in, and then there would be a trigger. Something would happen, everything would snowball, and then I would just kind of express them out. I would cry them out all at once, and then I'd go back to not having too many emotions, but still being quite emotional. I don't know if I explained that clear enough, right? I'm gonna go ahead, take a little sip from my tea, gather my thoughts, you know, because I'm starting to ramble, okay? And we don't want to ramble on this. I am drinking Twingings herbal tea, orange and cinnamon spice. That's the tea I'm drinking right now in my cute little mug that I got from Target the other day. Like, I know we're doing a little bit of a detour, but you know, heavy topics deserve a little bit of a break in between, right? So, I'm coming back. So I always hated that about myself. I mean, not that I hated myself, but I hated how I just kind of emotionally vomited on whoever would listen. And I wanted to share my story on my channel because it's a vital part of me. And it's something that I think about a lot. And I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I just have thoughts in my head and they just keep rattling around, right? And I can't let go of them. With ADHD, there's a thing called hyper focusing, and honestly, you can probably hyper focus with other neurodivergent mental things. I don't want to call them mental illnesses, you know what I'm saying? But for me, the hypersensitivity was one of the things I definitely picked up. It wasn't something I grew, it was something I was pretty much born with, just like how I believe I was born with ADHD. And so hypersensitivity, rejection sensitivity, and then also the hyper focus. I definitely tend to hyper focus on things. So when I'm hyper focusing on things, I kind of think about it. And even if a trigger hasn't happened in the outside world, it starts to snowball behind the scenes until I just blah, right? Someone can say one word and then I'm, you know, spilling my guts about a certain situation that happened to me when I was a child, right? And I hate doing that to people. So that's why trauma timeline. And we kind of got into this point because of my childhood, but really we got to this point with my trip to South Korea. If you guys know, when I started my channel, I believe I started my channel because I was on my way to South Korea. This is the dream place that I've always wanted to go. Okay, when I was in high school, I dreamed of going to South Korea. Part of the reason was like I love the idea of traveling, and also I wanted to get away from my mom. And I thought if I went all the way to another country, she couldn't get me there, right? That was one of my motivators to go to Korea. And also K-dramas and Korean men. So if you guys don't know, I already did a video where I talk about my first love and how I had a unhealthy obsession with Asian men. I'm gonna go ahead and throw myself under the bus. You know, toxic patterns, we're gonna talk about them. But yes, when I went to Korea, I was attacked in Korea. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later down the trauma timeline. But when I came back from Korea, I was lost. I was attacked in Korea. My birth mom died. And coming back to America, you go through this thing when you leave a country after you've lived there for a while. You go through this reverse depression. And I was told about it, but I didn't really know how it was going to affect me. And then couple that with PTSD from getting attacked, and just other things that were happening at home. I came back and I was withdrawn. I came back and I couldn't trust people anymore. And I came back and I was in the beginnings of a very hard time for me. Running to Korea was to escape from like my childhood. It was to escape from my traumas. It was to escape from all of that hurt. And getting attacked in Korea and all of the things that happened when I was in Korea, everything caught up with me in a way that I did not expect it to catch up with me. After I went to Korea, I came back to America and I was like, I'm going to make a baby. I'm going to have a baby because I need to create a family. And I was lost. I was lost in the sauce, babes. But I wanted to create a family. I ended up falling in love with someone who didn't want me. And I was trying to escape from home because my mother was showing me through her actions that she did not care for my mental health at all. So I went to college just on edge. I went to college after I had left the house, right? I left the house with my mom, and I know I'm jumping all around because it's really deep why I left the house with my mom, and it still hurts me to this day. But I left the house with my mom, and I moved in with Stu. And this was back when he didn't want me, you guys. This was back where, you know, I have a female friend that will be homeless if I don't let her sleep on my couch type thing. And I fell in love with him because he helped me a lot during that time. I attached myself to him because he was the only one who could help me, and he made me feel safe. And I was searching for safeness, and he wasn't ready to be that stability for me, which caused me to fall into a deeper depression than I already was in. My friend in college had already moved back home, and my other friend just happened to be my ex. We couldn't necessarily hang out too much because I knew that that friend liked me, but also he was my only friend, so I continued to hang out with him, which hurt him. And also it hurt me, but it hurt him more because I was like, we're not gonna be together, but I was always hanging out with him. So I'm sorry about that, but I got to the point where I was like, no one cares about me, and I might as well unalive myself. And I spoke to my mom about it. I was like, I'm in a really tough position right now. I'm in a really tough mental space right now. And I'm thinking about unaliving myself. And my mom looks at me and she tells me, you can't unalive yourself. I don't have enough money to bury you. Like, if you want to hurt yourself, okay, fine. But, like, I don't have enough money to bury you. And she was saying it in that manner. And I knew my mom wasn't necessarily someone that you could really turn to throughout life. She would always make disparaging or mean comments about people who have hurt themselves or people who have committed the act of unaliving themselves. But I guess I was just reaching out to everyone because I didn't feel strong enough to keep myself alive in that moment. So give me a second, the camera is about to go dead.
6 months later.
And we are back. I hope you took that time to go ahead and drink some tea, take a couple breaths. I know I needed to take that time to take a couple breaths because this story is so real to me. And this was the darkest moment in my life, wanting to unalive myself. And I think it really snowballed from my childhood, and also this thought in my head that I knew it was coming. I knew there was a darkness inside of me, and I kept pushing it away, and it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I didn't know how to confront it, and I was afraid of myself. So I told you guys I was living with Stu Boo. Stu didn't want the trouble. He didn't want to have to deal with a girl that was very unstable. And I'll give him that. He was a young male at the time. And you know, he's not a saint in all of this because he did his dirtiness as well. But I was really clinging to him, and I think that was a lot for a young male to take on. Thankfully, things have worked out at the end of the day. But things were rocky back then, and I was definitely leaning on him a lot more than I think someone his age should have to necessarily deal with. I think that the amount that I was leaning on him and the support I was trying to gain from my friends was the support that I feel like I should have been getting from my family. And as you see, when I turned to my family, she was very she didn't take it seriously, or she did take it seriously and she just didn't care. But her words will forever remain in my head on when I spoke to her about being in my darkest point in life. She brushed me off. That was her immediate reaction. Oh, you can't unalive yourself. I don't have enough money to bury you. And throughout that conversation, she made it about herself. And she also asked me to go ahead and get life insurance on myself, because if I was going to do it, you know, she should get paid, because, you know, she had to take care of me those years before. I went back to the school that weekend and I had a plan in mind. Okay, I can't do it right now, but I can save up enough money and I'll do it around New Year's. And I was very upfront, very blunt about it. I told my friends, I was like, yeah, this is my plan. I thought about it and like, this is it, because I feel such a heavy numbness and I feel like I can't control this darkness that is growing within me, right? And I don't even remember my male friend. And oh, I do remember my male friend, because what he said to me during that time really hurt me. He told me that I was pretty much going to have to deal with it myself, because he had too many things going on in his life and he couldn't necessarily hear me talk about these things, because me talking to him about my emotional state triggered him. Which valid, I mean, if your friend is talking about like being in a very bad mental space, I guess it could trigger you. But he was just like, okay, well, you'll get through it. I can't be here for you right now. And that really hurt, because at that point I had left Stubu's house. I moved into my apartment early at the school because me and Stubu were going back and forth. And pretty much I only had two people that I could rely on at that time, which was my male friend, which was also my ex and first love, honestly, and my female friend that I had with me my entire college career. Like, we met the first week of school, and she had moved away. She graduated and she moved away, and like, my male friend was like, yeah, I can't be there for you, and she couldn't physically be there for me. And I felt like I needed someone's physical presence, because I felt like I couldn't necessarily be alone at that time. So I talked to her, and she told me, you need to go talk to a therapist. And at that time I had already been going to a therapist, because like I said, since I've been young, specifically since about the 5th grade, this thought was in my head that I was going to unalive myself one day. Like, it was going to come. I just didn't know when it was going to happen. So as soon as I went to college, not as soon as I went to college, but pretty soon into college, I went ahead and started seeking counseling. So I had a counseling appointment, but it wasn't for another 2 weeks or so. And she was like, just go in, do a walk-in and talk to them. And I went in to do a walk-in, and I spoke to this new lady, and I was like, hey, I'm having these thoughts. I'm only here because my friend told me to talk to you guys. But honestly, I feel like this is worthless. I feel like talking to you guys isn't helping me. I've been talking to this guy for a while because I had another therapist there. I've been talking to him for a while, and I still feel this darkness, and it's creeping up on me. I still feel it coming. So this is not helpful. I'm done with therapy, right? That was pretty much my, like, forget therapy. I'm done with this. And that lady face was like, oh my God. So I'm gonna send you to a place where you can get help. And I was like, yeah, that's not gonna work. I don't have the money for this. Like I'm trying to save up some money so like my mama can bury me, and now you're trying to say help and it's gonna cost money. Like, I can't do that. And she was like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. And I'm just like, nah, I don't see how that could help anything. In any way, like, I'm not planning on doing anything for another 6 months, because it was about October when I did. It was about October when I was talking about this. You know what? That lady was right. I that's why it's important to have a trauma timeline, you guys. That is why it's so important to have a trauma timeline. Because in my head, I still had a while to go before I was gonna do it, you know? But in reality, it was like around October that I went to the therapist, and I was talking about doing it for New Year's. You know? October, November, December. I was so lost. I was so lost, you guys. So that's how I ended up going to the mental hospital. But I kind of feel like talking about the mental hospital is a story for next time. Because the mental hospital brought its own issues. But wow. This is a lot, you guys. If you made it this far, I want to thank you guys for listening to my story. And it was a heavy story for me. I had to take a little break a couple times in between and sip on my tea. And it took me so many times of recording and re-recording the intro, because I was like, oh my gosh, no, like, no. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to speak on it, and I'm just going to let my voice guide me. I'm going to let my heart guide the conversation. So, thank you for watching Trauma Timeline, you know? And I just learned something with you guys, which was I was a lot more dangerous to myself than I actually realized. And I felt angry with the lady for sending me to the mental hospital. I felt so angry with the lady for sending me to the mental hospital. But I can understand why she did it now. And today's the first day that I can understand why she did it. A little bit of something to add in, a little tidbit, is I went to the mental hospital in October of, I believe, 2018. And it's been 3 years, and when this video comes out, this will be around the anniversary of me pretty much going to the mental hospital. So what better way to commemorate that than to start talking publicly about where I have been mentally. Much love and positive vibes, and I hope to see you guys again. Like, subscribe, whatever you want to do, as long as you're doing it with me. And let me know down below if you're open. Have you ever had a moment where you felt like the darkness was taking over? Because I think that was that moment for me.